So, elastic audio is kind of a continuation of what we've just been discussing with the TCE tool. Basically, elastic audio allows you to make timing adjustments to audio and allows you to work with the timing adjustments within the audio and within the clips. TCE tool affects the overall clip as a whole, whereas elastic audio, you can affect the overall clip, but you can also go in and just affect like bits and pieces of the clip. AJ says, at some point will we learn how to make our own beats? AJ, that's the one thing we're never ever going to talk about. Sorry. It's going to be a mystery for the rest of your life. I will never explain to you how to make your own beats. Sorry, just not going to happen, man. Just not going to happen. No, never. Yes, AJ, we want to know, dang. Oh man, I really want to learn how to make my own beats. Of course, we're gonna absolutely learn how to make your own beats. We're gonna be talking about that when we talk about MIDI, and I think it's not next week. I think it's the week after that, but it might actually be next week. I don't know. Let me take a look at the schedule, and yeah, we're gonna be totally learning how to make our own beats. Antonia says, Tony, when I drag the drum loop to stereo, do I send it to separate tracks left and right? When you drag it to stereo, separate tracks left or right. I'm not exactly, I'd have to see what you're doing, Antonio. I mean, if you drag it into a stereo track, you shouldn't have to touch the anything. If you're trying to drag it into two separate tracks, then you're probably dragging it onto two mono tracks, and that's Lab 1, dude. We're not in Lab 1 right now. Let's talk about Lab 1 in the thing. This is like, yeah, like I have to stay on target here, buddy. Let's talk about Lab 1 in Zoom, okay? Because right now I'm like at a very different thing. But yeah, I'll be sticking to your lectures every day. You're the best. No, it's cool, Antonio. It's all good. Just right now I have to stay in it. And Chrissy, what is up? How you doing? Welcome back. Everybody say hi to Chrissy. Hello, Chrissy. Yeah, why when used TCE is it important what algorithm you use? You gotta test out your own algorithms, Eduardo. When you're using the TCE tool, what I recommend doing is just seeing what it sounds like and experimenting, because I can't answer that. You know, it's important because it's going to change the sound. I'm sorry, I think I misread your question. Why when using the TCE is it important what algorithm you choose? Well, okay, so yeah, I'm sorry, I was answering a different question. It's important the algorithm you choose because that's going to change how it sounds. And what I encourage you to do is I encourage you to choose different algorithms and stretch things and make it all stuff like that, like stretch things, compress things, and just see how it sounds. Because ultimately you need to make the decision which algorithm that you want to use. So you're going to have to test things out and try things there. But it does make a difference because it changes the sound, and any kind of change in sound is going to affect everything. All right, so let's get back on path here. There's several different elastic audio modes, and this is right in here. If we go down here, let's say, for example, let's check this keyboard one here, and let me undo what I'd done before. I'm the goat. That's such a thank you. I appreciate that I'm the goat. I just always have to remember what goat means. Greatest of all time. I always think it's like the god of all things. This thing is the goat. It is the god of all things, right? But the greatest of all time. That's because I have my human mask on. Really, I am a goat. When I leave, I go to my field. I hang out in my field in the corner of Central Park over there, and I just kind of hang out like, yeah. So I'm gonna have to start using the. I actually have a camera. Y'all know that Snapcam app that you can get for your computer. I've got one. I can make a goat app on there, so I can just do my lessons with a goat face on. Anyway, all right, continuing. This is all recorded, so if you want to relive this moment, be my guest. We kind of got to. Should I just start over? I feel like I should just start over. All right, where was I? The TC Elastic Audio, right? So Elastic Audio. Let's go ahead and put this keyboard line into Elastic Audio mode. I'm going to go ahead and solo this out so we can hear it. Right, so that's at 120. No, I'm going to keep this in here now. I like it. I like it. This is part of the lesson. People can watch this on YouTube in perpetuity. All right, so we got this here. And let's go ahead and make this be 115. We changed the tempo to 115 to kind of make things not be so far away from our 120 original time of stuff. And what I'm going to do is down here is where we can change the elastic audio right here. So click on this and you've got different elastic audio forms here: polyphonic, rhythmic, monophonic, and vari speed. And these can all be, you can see what they do right here in the notes. Polyphonic is the full songs. Rhythmic is drums, rhythmic instruments, detached melodic instruments, stuff like that. Anything that's detached. And I'm going to show you some cool things you can mess around with it. Mostly it's drums, and that kind of makes sense. Drums, rhythmic, that's what kind of makes sense there. But don't forget, it can be other things. Anything that's detached, that doesn't overlap itself. Anything that's like got some bup, 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 space between the notes, space between the sounds. Monophonic is for solo non-chord instruments. To be honest, I don't really use monophonic mode at all, ever. And then vari speed is the same as a record player or a sampler. Faster is going to be a higher pitch, slower is going to be a lower pitch. Earlier on, I think it was Zach, I think you asked me about how we can change the tempo of things, and that's using vari speed. And let me just show you this real quick. It's kind of the easiest thing to demonstrate. And let's just go over here to, let's just take a look at the longer notes here. The vari speed, similar to a record player or a sampler, the speed affects the pitch. So if I go faster, it's going to go lower. If I go faster, it's going to go higher. If I go slower, it's going to go lower. It's more of a special effect. So do not approach a scene, okay? So, so for example, yeah, it's like vinyl, right? So check this out. If I take this and I slow it way down, let's just put this here. So let's listen to it. This is the original speed. Okay, I'm going to put this at 120, so we're kind of back at the original speed of things. And now let's use vari speed on this so you can just check it out. So here's this. I'm going to change this down here, the Elastic Audio plugin. Change this to vari speed right there. And now, if we slow this down, let's slow it down to something really slow. Let's go to half speed, 60 BPMs. Watch this. Right? Sounds like a record player. If I speed it up to 80, right? If I speed it up to 100, right, you can hear how it changes that pitch. There's our original pitch. Let's just keep going faster. Right, keep going faster. Right, and you can hear it's getting faster, but it's also changing the speed. Why is 120 BPM the default? Well, I don't know why Pro Tools made 120 BPM the default, but I know that I'm using 120 BPM because just all these tempos, all these samples came from the same sample pack, and it just happened to be at 120 BPM. There's no, like, this sample pack just happens to be 120 BPM. If I used a different sample pack, it would be maybe slightly different, 122, 123. 120 is like a kind of the standard BPM for a lot of house music, just kind of a starting point. Something has to be the starting point. Pro Tools just chose 120. Now, there might be another reason. 120 is double each 1 second, right? Because 1 second, there's 60 seconds per minute. BPM stands for beats per minute. So 60 BPM is actually one beat every second. If you say, I don't like how quickly the piano cuts out, could you use TC to extend just the tail end? You could. Here, let's do this. let's take this. Let's go ahead and use this because a couple of people have complained about the tail of this piano. So let's go ahead and change that real quick. But I just want to address everything that y'all are saying here. Every DAW I've used has 120 as the default Logic Reaper. And then can you set the elastic audio in different places in the audio to make it go from slow to fast? The answer is yes-ish. You can do it, and we're going to get into that. So just addressing the 120 thing again, I think it might have something to do with the tempo stuff. It might just have to do with they just needed to have some kind of tempo be the BPM standard, so they just set 120. Maybe it's because it's double a second. It doesn't necessarily have to be. You can set up your own templates and stuff to have different tempos. If you don't like 120 being the default tempo, in Ableton Live, I know you can set your default set that has like whatever different settings you want. In Logic, you can probably do the same. In Pro Tools, I know you can have like a template that you can just like open up every time. So you could change that. I'm not exactly sure why 120 is the default for a lot of DAWs, but it is. Now, if we wanted to adjust the end of this, let's hold off on that. I do want to show you how to do that, but let's hold off on that in just a second, actually, and come back to it after I show you a couple more things about elastic audio. So that's Varispeed. Now we don't have to come back and talk about Varispeed again. That's a basic one. That's actually not really using elastic audio much at all. It is allowing you to adjust the speed of things, but it's actually just using the natural, what should I say, the natural physics, how physics just works. And like a record player, if you slow down a record player, it's going to get lower in pitch. If you speed it up, it's going to get higher in pitch. Samplers also work the same way. Once we get into sampling, you're going to see that. I'm going to show you that one as well. That's how samples work. All right, so let's back it up a little bit and let's talk a little bit about our track views, okay? So we've discussed about elastic audio, kind of what it does. Now let's talk about the track views and how we can set up everything for elastic audio. So far, everything we've been doing has to do with just general, here, let me drag in our original one. I want to start with the original, more cowbell here. Hold on, let me just make sure I'm grabbing the right one here, yep. So here's our original cowbell. All right, there we go, there's that. So let's go here to, let's use that one and this one here. I'll put these up here, up at the top, so we have both of these. There's that. Here's my kick drum. Boom, 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 boom. There we go. And yeah, so. Cool. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's start with this kick drum and snare drum thing just because it's easier to see. First of all, I'm going to put this, it's in rhythmic mode right here, so we're just going to keep it in rhythmic mode. It's at its original tempo. So you might be saying, well, Tony, because it's at the original tempo, do I still need to use elastic audio? Well, the answer is maybe. Let's say I want to change the actual rhythm of this kick and clap. Now I can use elastic audio for this. And this is something that you cannot use TCE for. This is where we start to really diverge from the TCE tool. Remember, the TCE tool works on the whole entire clip. Elastic audio allows us to manipulate data within the clip itself. So what I can do is I go over here on the left-hand side in my track view, and now analysis and warp are available to us. If you remember before, if I go down to one that's not in elastic audio mode, see how analysis and warp are grayed out? I mentioned this the other day. Well, now they're not grayed out, they're available to us. If I click on this little thing here, click on this, not that. If I click on waveform here, go to analysis and warp. And these are two different things, but they both have to do with elastic audio. First of all, analysis, what it does is it shows us an analysis of the wave file, showing us where Pro Tools thinks there are transients. Now, transients are in here. Here's our transients. A transient is it's like the hard start of a waveform. It's the hard attack of a waveform. That's technically what a transient is. Is there anything in here? No, okay. So yeah, transients is the hard attack of a waveform. So if we look at this one here, where it's talking about rhythmic mode, see how this is like a kick drum, boom, bap, boom, bap. Each one has a transient line in it. And if I look at Pro Tools, we can see this is what my waveform looks like because it's a kick and a snare here. And you can see it puts a line on where every kick and snare starts. If I look at this vocal down here, and I put this into elastic audio mode, and I go to analysis, you can see it kind of does it, but it's a little bit harder to see where to put these lines. Hold on, let me just put this back into waveform so I can get rid of the trim there, the fade. There we go. So you can see it's got these, like, it's not quite as clear cut where to put the analysis lines. So the analysis lines are these lines right here, and I can move them around and put it back with Command Z. So I can move it, and you can see it doesn't adjust the waveform at all. It's just moving this line. This line is data for Pro Tools for you to tell Pro Tools this is a transient. This is like where I want you to put some kind of rhythmical like denotation here. So it's marking the transients for Pro Tools. And down here in my vocal, let me just put the vocal right here for a second. It's not going to be as clear. So what this tells us is that analysis mode is a lot easier to kind of recognize what it's doing with rhythmic stuff. And it's a lot easier for Pro Tools to make rhythmic stuff sound better than it is for non-rhythmic stuff. Now, the vocal is rhythmic, of course it is, but it's not got a lot of hard attacks. So it's not got as many transients. If we listen to this vocal here, all over the world, right? There's a transient in the very beginning where she says, all, right? But then, all over the world, whatever she says, it's a word, but it's not actually like a really hard transient. So Pro Tools actually did a pretty good job. All over the world. Right? Did a pretty good job of figuring out what transients are, but then it's got transients over here, right? This is not a transient. So with my analysis mode, what I can do is I can go in and adjust where these transients are, and I can say, Pro Tools, you're wrong. That's not actually a transient. What I can do is I can hold down my Option key and I can get rid of each transient. And I've got my Smart Tool turned on, up here, Smart Tool. And I can actually go in here and get rid of these different transients to only have transients where I really need them to be. I don't really need one on world. All over the world. Right? If I want to put one in, I could just double click and put one in. There we go. So now, all over the world. Right, there we go. I've got these transients in here. Now with analysis mode, I can't really do anything with these transients. It's just, it's literally, I'm just telling Pro Tools, this is a transient. This is where I want you to kind of figure out the rhythm stuff. We have to go over here to change the view to warp mode. Here, boom, warp mode. I'm going to put them both in warp mode so we can just see what's going on with them. I'm going to go ahead and mute these. And let's just listen to my kick and snare. Warp mode, I can still see where the transients are. You can see these little gray lines are here. See the gray lines are in here? And if I mouse over it, it actually does some stuff. You can see my cursor changes. Right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put in a click track so we can just hear this against a click track. Here's my click. And I'm going to go ahead and grab my Tony click that I set up before. Tony click. Awesome. Okay, so there's that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move these beats around a little bit. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to lock some of these into place. Now, the way we lock these into place is I double click on it. 1, 2, boom, it locks it in. So now, if I just single click on anything inside of here, it just puts a lock in there. And what this does, when I lock it into place, it means that these are not going to move. They're going to stay locked to that point in time. And if I move something else, I can change that rhythm around. Let's go ahead and move this around like this. Now let's listen to the new rhythm. And you can hear I can change this around. And I can change the rhythm all around however much I want. Right. And you can hear some of them sound better than others, but there's a couple of adjustments we can make to make them all sound pretty good. And this is what you can do with Elastic Audio. I'm able to go in and move my rhythms around without affecting the pitch. And like I can just basically go in and do kind of whatever I want. A couple things you cannot do is you can't take these, you can't duplicate these sections, you can't you can't move a section in front of another section like that. How would you go about wanting to use a 3/4 count instead of a 4/4 count? AJ, that's a great question. That actually has to do with our tempo up here and our we would want to use our meter up here. And we can change the meter, our time signature and stuff like that. But that's actually a kind of a different discussion. We need to get to talking about meters and stuff for that one. That's not really an Elastic Audio discussion. It's more of a Pro Tools timing question. Sorry. So in here, right? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click on this here. I'm going to click on this thing here, and it brings up this decay rate. I'm going to go ahead and change my decay rate down like this. Right, and that's going to help things a little bit. There we go. And I'll explain what I just did in a little bit. I kind of want to come back to it though, this decay rate thing. It's a little bit of a weird thing here to understand. I just want to focus on the Elastic Audio, the broad strokes of Elastic Audio first. Okay, so I've got that. Now let's take this vocal sample and make this vocal sample fit the drum loop here. Now, you notice that when I was using the vocal sample before, I never took it and used TCE tool because this vocal sample, really what we want to do is just mess with the internal timing of the vocal itself. So I'm going to go in here and all over the world. Right? So I can hear that she's singing a little bit fast. All over the world. All over the world. Right? It's kind of, I want it to be a little bit slower. All over the world. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go down here and I'm just going to make it a little bit slower. First of all, I'm going to put my timing into slip mode here. I'll zoom in on this and I'm going to just drag this and drag, whoops, wait, hold on, what happened? Oh, I cut it, wait, let me uncut that. Let me put it back into waveform mode and why did I get a cut? Let's see. Heal this back together. Can I heal? Okay, never mind. I'm just going to drag it over like this. Oh, I know why. It's because I stretch it with the TCE tool. I remember now. I forgot that I stretch it with the TCE tool. All right, so we're in here. Let's go back to our analysis. I'm going to get rid of all these using Option and all over the world. Yep, and this one here. Good. Okay, so now I've got this set up. Now, you might be like, whoa, Tony, like, why are you choosing these to delete these little analysis points? And the reason why I'm deleting these points here is because they're not really representing anything that's happening with a word. I want to separate her up into different words that she's using. And those really, here, let me undo some of this that I deleted. See, this isn't a word. and this isn't a word. This is the end of a word, which I'll keep that one, but I might not actually keep it. We'll see. This isn't a word. This is like the middle of a word. So
all over the world.
Right? So I'm going to get rid of these here that are not part of the word. And now let's use the ones we've got here. Oh, this one too. Okay. And I'm going to go over here to warp mode. And now I can start messing around with the timing of things. So first of all, I'm just going to take this one right here. I'm going to grab and drag it on over like this. Boom.
All over the world.
Right? And it immediately sounded better. Now, how do I know to put it there? I've been doing this for a very, very long time. So I've just got you just get used to the feel of things. But let me just show you what I use to do that. I use this thing called telescoping mode. And you don't have to do anything for telescoping mode. Basically, the only thing about telescoping mode, it just means that there's no warp points to the right. And a warp point is this little thing here. See this little flag right here on my screen, this little like a triangle with a line coming up from it? That's what we call a warp point. If I double click and I put a warp point in, remember what I said before, it locks that point into that place in time. So if I grab this and move around, see, nothing else moves. So I can make it sound good up to this point right here, but this one's still going to be off.
All over the world.
Right? It doesn't sound horrible, but it also doesn't sound exactly right. Whereas if I grab this one without having a warp point over here, see how it's like a little different logo, a little different symbol here? It's got like a back and forth arrow with a little trim thing on the top. Well, that's the Pro Tools symbol for telescoping. I'm just going to drag it over like this, and you see if I drag it back and forth, see how it all kind of scrunches up like a telescope, right? Like that, boom.
All over the world.
Okay, and that's how we can make that sound amazing, and it sounds great. Fantastic, right? I think so. So that's how we can do that, but again, in order to get to the point where you can just look at it and listen to it and just decide how, what you should do to make it work right, you just kind of have to do this a bunch of times. I've been using Elastic Audio in one form or another since 2001. Accordion mode? Yeah, it's like an accordion, right? Yeah. I've been using Elastic Audio in one form or another since 2000 or 2001. That's when Ableton Live first came out. Ableton Live was the first program that had anything like this. That's why it got so famous. And also the workflow of Ableton Live was really cool. But initially what made it super interesting was that it had this thing called warp mode. And you could just drag things in with different tempos and they would just work together. No other DAW really did that as smoothly as Ableton Live. There were some DAWs that did do it, like Acid did it pretty well. And then Reason had their Rex files. But Ableton Live was really the one that kind of made it super, super, super easy. And everybody else kind of copied that later. So Elastic Audio came around in 2008 or something like that. I can't remember exactly what year it came out, but it way after Ableton Live was a thing. And as a matter of fact, Pro Tools used to package Ableton Live with it. When you bought Pro Tools, you actually got a light copy of Ableton Live that had 4 tracks in it, and you could use them. They kind of rewired together. But so I've been doing it for a long time. I've been doing it for 21 years, about 19 years. So you're going to get good at it if you do something for 19 years. What's going in my head when I'm thinking about how to do this is I'm listening to her singing all over the world, yeah, right? And I'm thinking about 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm counting along with it. 1, 2, 3, 4. All over the world. Yeah. Right? Now, please pardon my horrible singing. I'm not a singer, but I don't need to be a singer to make these beats. Now, if I sing that faster and there's nothing else going on, if it's just her voice, the rhythm, her voice still fits its own internal grid. And this is a really key part to kind of wrap your head around. And it's kind of hard to wrap your head around what I'm about to say here. this internal grid. It might be hard for some people, it's easier for other people, but every loop has its own internal grid. So if you don't play a metronome with it, if you just listen to it. So if she says, all over the world, right, like that, it's a slow tempo. If she goes, all over the world, right? But if you hear my hand clapping, it fits with her vocal the same way. I'm not going to go, all over the world. I can't even do it, right? It's so hard for me to kind of disconnect the tempo from the two tempos. I'm not a drummer. I don't have good ambidexterity here. But she has this internal tempo within things. And this drum loop also has its own internal tempo. Now, the drum loop happens to be fitting to the tempo of the song. So the drum loop is what I want to fit her voice to. But if I look at what she's singing here, if I look at the waveform, and I look at these little transient markers here, and if I think they're right, if I've been looking at them, I studied them, and I said, okay, I agree with these, then if I go over here, let's listen to her vocal first.
All
Actually, let's turn the metronome off as well. There we go. So here's her voice.
over the world.
Right? Her voice to me is a tempo all over the world. Right? I don't know what tempo that is. Like, it's faster than 120. That's all I know about it, right? But it doesn't matter what tempo it is. I don't have to care what tempo it is. I just have to say, okay, this needs to go at a certain place within the tempo. Right? Basically, it has to go onto the 3rd or 4th 16th note of the bar. Ba, 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 right? So if I take this and I move it to this one or this one, it's a little bit off enough so it would probably be fine. Like, I think this is probably where it goes.
All over,
Now we play it with the metronome.
all over the world.
Right? That one, or I could do this one here, might work.
All over the world.
No, definitely this one, okay? And to me, it just sounds right one way or the other because I'm hearing the tempo and I've got a feeling of how she's singing it. Now, it might be that actually she's singing it completely in a different way and I'm kind of off about how I'm thinking about it, and that does happen. I've noticed that for me personally, I hear rhythms maybe sometimes a little bit differently than how other people hear the rhythms. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. I definitely have to make adjustments to it when I'm listening to stuff. But I've been doing stuff with rhythms since I was about 4 years old when I started playing piano. So I've been doing it for a very, very, very long time. So it's just kind of ingrained in my soul. That's 40 years of me doing music stuff, right? So it's a while. If you do anything for 40 years, it's going to be a part of your soul, right? Now, what I can do is, what I don't want to do is here. Let's put that back. There we go. That's the original here, and let's put this with the drum loop here.
All over the world.
Right. Kind of weird. So if I were to go ahead and double click on this one and lock this one in. So now that's part of that there. And I could take this and I could move it over. So this part's correct and this part's got a little bit weird.
All over the world.
Right, that one doesn't sound horrible.
All over the world.
Right, it doesn't sound exactly right because we've heard her sing it her original way a few times. But I can manipulate this.
All over the world. All over the world. All over the world. All over the world.
Right? And what you start to notice is the more we listen to it like this, which is actually slightly different from her original rhythm, it starts to sound right. Because if you haven't heard how she sang it originally, now we start to play magic with it, and we're now manipulating it, but we're manipulating it for an audience who may have never heard it the original way. So now we can start to do all sorts of funky stuff with it, and we can put it over here like this, we could do it like this. This actually, putting it here is kind of close to what she had sang it originally.
All over the world.
right? And you can hear it. It sounds okay in any one of those places. It's kind of a cool little thing we can do with it. Now, I don't know if I would necessarily do this with Elastic Audio. You can, and once I heard this, I might go, oh, that actually sounds cool, but this part right here sounds weird. Let me just go ahead and mute it out. So mute everything else out so we can hear the vocal. I'm going to put this up here as well. Make it a little bit smaller so y'all can see better.
All over the world. All over the world.
Right? Maybe I don't want this sounding so weird here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this back like this. And then what I can do is I can go over here and put this back in waveform mode. I'm going to go cut this one and then move it over like this.
All over the world. All over the world. All over the world.
Right? And now once I put everything back into it, we're not going to hear that gap.
All over the world. All over the world.
Right? That sounds more natural. So I've manipulated her voice to fit the rhythm, but then I've also cut it in order to kind of play around with it and give her a slightly different rhythm than what she actually sang it, but keeping it natural. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because I get this idea in my head of what I want it to sound like, and I'm using all the tools at my disposal. I'm using Elastic Audio, and I'm using my cutting and my tools up top to kind of mess around with it. I don't expect y'all to be as fluid as I am anytime soon. Again, I've been using Pro Tools since 1999, and then Elastic Audio and all that stuff I started using in like 2008 or 9 when it first came out. So it's gonna take you a minute to get here. Is it gonna take you 20 years? No, not at all. But it might take you like a few months or a year, depending on how much you just buckle down and use Pro Tools. How do you zoom out? Command brackets. Also, Antonio, I know you're trying to get through this stuff right now, but pretty much every question you're asking me is actually in the notes from week 1. So I do want you to go through and check out those notes, buddy. Okay? Just so you have them right there in front of you, because everything you're asking is in those notes also. But it's command brackets. All right. So in here, that's the kind of overview of Elastic Audio. So one more time, just a quick recap of this. Okay, our track views here, recap, analysis, and warp, and the warp markers. Okay, so analysis is where it shows you the transients and lets you add or subtract the transient lines. You cannot edit the audio in this view. No, you're fine, dude. You're fine. Just don't be sorry. I just want to, I'm just trying to stay focused on Elastic Audio right now. Warp mode allows you to edit the audio timing. You can add, subtract, and edit the warp markers, okay? So just these two here, just a quick recap. In analysis mode, that's this one here, we can't edit the actual audio. If you move these around, it doesn't adjust the audio. Well, you can see this is adjusting audio because I've already actually warped it here. Let me just go down to this one here. I haven't touched it yet. Make this one a bit smaller. Here we go, analysis mode. See, I've got all these warp. I've got all these transient markers in here, and I can move them around. It doesn't touch anything. It doesn't move the audio at all. If I go to warp mode, now we can still see these, but this is where I can actually start to move the audio around. I lock one in place, and now I can mess with these and do all sorts of whatever stuff with them.
All over the world.
Right, you hear how weird that sounds? Right, and that's because I just went and just kind of did whatever with them. But if I hit Command Z to undo all that, and let's say I wanted to make this part go like that, and let's line these up. I'm going to put it into grid mode. If I use it in grid, I've been using it in slip mode the whole time. That's why it slips around like that. But if I put it in grid mode, these do lock into the grid. So if I put one here and I move this stuff over like this, like that, boom, 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 like that. can lock these into the grid. Right, and we can make it sound like it sounds okay. Just kind of weird, right?
All over the world. All over the world. All over the world. All over the world. All over the world.
So you can go ahead and mess around with these. Now, again, experiment, try things out, kind of explore the world of elastic audio. You're going to have to do a lot of exploring to really kind of wrap your head around what it is. It took me a while actually to kind of understand exactly what was going on. There wasn't there wasn't a lot of like things out about it yet when it, because it came out, elastic audio came out in like 2008. And so I just really had to dive in and kind of mess around with it. But now I feel like it's, or warp your head around it. Ha 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 ha. I see what you did there. I see what you did. I'm looking at you. I see you. All right. So that's that. If I want to delete these warp changes that I did, I hold down Option and click them, and it deletes them. I can also highlight them and hit delete, and it will delete all these warp markers. And that's how you can kind of do that there. If you want to cut up the track, you have to go over here to waveform, cut up the clip, and do the cutting in the waveform like this. You can't Command E and separate your waveform inside analysis or warp view. All right. So that's all this stuff here. All right, so let's dive in a little bit, just real quick, to the different algorithms here. Polyphonic is the best all around. When in doubt, use polyphonic. It's specifically good for full songs. If I have a whole song in here, it would be really good for me to use polyphonic mode for that. Rhythmic mode is any clip that has disconnected audio, non-legato stuff, drums, bass, rhythm piano, guitar, stuff like that. Anything that's not connected together. Monophonic is supposedly good for non-chord instruments, but Tony doesn't like it. I'm not a fan of monophonic. Don't use monophonic is what I recommend. Use one of the other ones. And then vari-speed we already talked about. Keep in mind, remember, polyphonic sounds the best. It is the most processor intensive though. Okay? It is the best all around, but it does take up a lot of your power of your processor and your computer. The more tracks you have in elastic audio mode, the more it's going to eat up your processor. If I go up here to Window and then go to System Usage, we can see over here what it's doing and how much it's using stuff. So if we go in here, we click on these arrows, we can see all my cores of my computer. Resources, here we go. Well, it's not showing me. It used to actually show elastic audio in here, but then they changed it. It doesn't show elastic audio anymore. But
All over the world. All over the world.
okay, so we can see it's using like 25% of my processor power because I've got a lot of things using elastic audio in here. So the more stuff you have using elastic audio, the more it's going to use up your system resources. So just keep that in mind when you're doing a lot of elastic audio stuff. Vari-speed is the least processor intensive. It sounds the least natural. The key of the sample will change. Don't use it for pitched audio. So if you wanted to use vari-speed for stuff, it's more of a sound effect thing. Keep that in mind. Monophonic, avoid it if you can. Try it if you need to conserve CPU. Yeah, I mean, go ahead and try monophonic if you want. I would suggest trying it out, but it's not. It sounds weird. All right, just take a look at. Okay, let's go over here. I'm going to come back to the beats mode here. This one here, rhythmic mode. But before we do that, I just want to go over some of these symbols that we've been messing around with here. The warp view symbols, and I'm down in this section down here. Telescoping mode looks like this. It lengthens or shortens the audio like a telescope or an accordion. If you hold Option, it anchors to the right, and if you hold it'll right anchor the telescoping mode. So here, let me just show you what that means. If I've got my keyboard line in here, let's go.
All over the world. All over the world.
Okay, so we got this here. If I wanted to telescope this one, let's go ahead and look at our analysis first. Okay, hold on, let's solo it. Okay, a couple things. We're going to notice that there are some weird parts in here. I'm going to get rid of this one here. Get out of here. There we go. Okay, I'm going to get rid of this one here. Okay, and we're going to put one like right here. I put one in by double clicking. All right. Now, if I want to adjust this tempo, go over here to, what was it I wanted? Oh yeah, what I want to do first was use telescoping mode. So I'm going to go ahead and use my warp here. And telescoping mode, if I move on one, it's going to telescope, or like we said, accordion. I just changed it to slip mode here. If I hold down Shift, wait, not Shift, what was it? Hold Option, you can telescope the other way. It'll lock in the right-hand side. See how it does that? Right? If I don't hold anything, it'll lock in the left side. If I hold Option, it locks in the right side. Like that. Okay. Now, there's this other one, Shift, which looks like a little TIE fighter. This is called Individual Warp. Basically, what it does is it'll lock this transient and this transient in and move the stuff in the middle. Right, like that. So that's what Shift does. So that's all three of these different symbols here. Okay, all right. Now, a minute ago, or a little bit ago, a few of y'all were kind of complaining about how the end of this like stops so abruptly. I actually like it, but if you don't like it, if you want to get it so it doesn't stop so abruptly, here's what you could do. It's not really going to be enough to use just elastic audio. Let me show you what it would be like if you use just elastic audio. I could double click and put a warp marker here and here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a warp marker right here in the middle between them. And you notice how it made everything highlighted? Well, you don't want it all to be highlighted, because if everything's highlighted, they're all going to move around. So what I do is I have to deselect everything by mousing up and hitting click with my select tool, and I can just drag this over here like this. Right, and I could do the same thing here. I'm going to put one in here, and I'm going to double click here, deselect the whole clip, and just kind of move this over. And actually, it sounds good. It sounds better than I kind of thought it would. Okay, let's go ahead and put the beat back. Not the vocal. I'm going to tighten up this one here. See how this one is a little bit late? I'm going to just drag it back to here. Maybe this last one can be a little bit short. Now you'll notice that this became red when I drag it too close. And what that means is it means that Pro Tools is not going to be very happy trying to render this in real time. It's not going to make a difference with this one so much because we're not hearing that middle space there, but if I were to take something and like stretch it like way out, see how it turns red, Pro Tools is going to sound pretty bad. Now, what I would probably do in real life is, in order to kind of get rid of this gap in here, I would use a combination of elastic audio and TCE tool and trimming stuff out, like separating things out. And so let me just show you that, what I would do for this. So I'm going to keep it in my elastic audio mode, keep the elastic audio plugin on here. I'm going to take this and take the waveform here. And I'm going to go down here and I'm going to edit out this end bit here. So I'm just going to go ahead and get rid of this. There's that. Zoom in on the beginning here. Trim this one forward a little bit. Boop, 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 boop. There we go, like that. And go over here to this one on the end. And I'm going to get rid of this stuff right there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my, I'm going to separate it. I'm going to separate it right here. And I'm going to use the TCE tool to drag this over. And what that did is, using the TCE tool with elastic audio turned on works a little bit differently than using the TCE tool without elastic audio turned on. When you use the TCE tool with elastic audio turned on, what it does is it doesn't create a new audio file on your computer. It just literally applies elastic audio to that little clip there, and so you're just dragging the whole clip. Where we don't have to work with our warp markers, and let's see here. See how it dragged this warp marker over here. Let's undo it real quick. Right. What I could maybe do is, let's try it a different way here. I would maybe cut it at this warp marker here. So, and that's something we could do if I wanted to. I'm not sure that warp marker is actually in the right place. Let's move the warp marker. And we're going to do that. I'm going to take this off, and I'm going to go over here and change this to analysis mode, and move this one to over here. Yeah, that was in the wrong place, and that means this one over here is also in the wrong place. Yeah, it needs to be at the, it needs to be at the 8th note, which is 480 here. So now I got that kind of fixed. Let's see if it sounds a little bit better when I drag it over like this using my TCE tool. So I'm going to go here to 480 and clippity clip this here. Let's do it like this. Warp, yeah. I'm going to just go ahead and select it right where this warp marker is. Make sure I'm in. Here, let's put this actually. Change this. And you might be saying, wow, this is like kind of a lot of work, Tony. Yeah, to do stuff, to do elastic audio right, if you're making it sound good, it does take a little bit of work. So I got this, we're good here. I'm going to put that there. I'm going to go over here to my warp marker, hit Command E. Now, waveform, and hit Command E, use my TCE tool, boom. So now, yeah, sounds better. So I like this, and if we like this and we're like, oh, we want to use that and we want that to be a new loop that we just have going all the time, what I can do is I highlight the whole thing. Yeah, I agree, Matteo. I think it does sound pretty good now. So what I can do is highlight the whole thing, hit Option-Shift-3 to consolidate, and it makes it into a new audio clip. And this new audio clip does not have any of the warping or anything that we just did. It puts new analysis things in it. And it put them in kind of a weird place, so let me go ahead and put these back. If you want to, you don't have to necessarily do this part, but if you were going to go and manipulate it again, you might want to do this part. Let's go ahead and put this right here on 2-1. And this one here is going to go on half, maybe that, and yeah, that looks pretty good. Let's put another one. Why is this one there? That's so weird. I'm just going to drag that back to here. Boom. Okay, so these basically sound okay together. They don't sound great together though. We might want to change the pitch a little bit in here. Now, really what I would do in this case is I would bust out Melodyne and use Melodyne to change her pitch on just a couple of notes. But let's see what we can do using the tools that Pro Tools comes with. And if you're wondering, wait, Tony, Melodyne, let's talk about Melodyne a little bit. Yes, let's talk about Melodyne a little bit at the right time. There's a time and a place for everything, and it's called college. Oh wait, no, it's called in a few weeks. So we're going to talk about Melodyne in a couple of weeks. Don't worry, I will show you how to do what I just said that I'd like to do, but not today. Today we're talking about Elastic Audio, so what we're going to do instead is we're going to grab this, and I can right-click on it, and I can go down here to Elastic Properties. Boop. And Elastic Properties pulls up this other window here. Now this window is going to be different depending on what kind of Elastic Audio mode you're using. So in this case we're using Rhythmic. Up here on this one here is Rhythmic mode, and see how it changes. It gives me more little options here. If I click on this one, it's going to have less options. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say let's pitch shift this. Let's just pitch it down.
All over the world.
Right?
All over the world. All over the world.
Right? There's still a note in here.
All over the
Right? That's weird. And it's not doing this one at all because I didn't select that one. So let's go ahead and put that back to 0. Let's select both of these here and put it down to -3.
all over the world. All over the world. All over the
Right? Let's see what happens if we adjust her vocal on just this one note. The way we do that is we have to go over here to waveform. Oh wait, we are in waveform. And
all over the
right, let's highlight this. We'll put it into slip mode. Let's grab this one. I'm gonna hit Command E to separate this one out by itself. Let's see.
all over the world. All over the all over the world. All over the world. All over the world.
Now, it sounds really weird. The A and all sounds too low. Maybe. Your pitch is probably better than mine. My pitch is actually not great. I have okay pitch, but not great pitch. The A and all sounds too low. Possibly. We can actually adjust that
All over
here.
all over the world.
But yeah, you kind of have to take more time than I want to. I just kind of wanted to show you broad strokes again and just kind of show you what you can do. And one more time, the way to get to this Elastic Properties window here is you right click and you select Elastic Properties. Fun contrast in a way I see how that tool can really play it out. Yeah, you could do all sorts of cool stuff with this. Now, does this sound supernatural? No, it doesn't. But would this be okay with modern music? Absolutely, because these days, a lot of the production and stuff like that isn't about making it sound natural. It's a lot about making it sound interesting and funky, and that's what it does.
All over the world. All over the world.
Right? So it sounds kind of cool like this. I don't hate it, as a matter of fact. I mean, for me personally, I don't hate it. And you could take this and then sample this. I would right click, I would select all these, and then let's put them all together, boom. And now it just got rid of all that data.
All over the world.
All right, and that's our new loop. But let me just show you something kind of with what we were talking about yesterday in playlists. I'm gonna give this track a different name, vocal loop. There we go. Could be a side street robot singer. Yeah, Benders from Futurama, Future X-Wife. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I love Futurama. So in here, see how I just renamed the track here. Let's say, in this case, if we like this, but we're not sure if we want to use it forever and ever, but we're kind of happy with it, but we want to keep it and we also want to change it. So what we're going to do is we're going to rename the track here, and I'm going to go here and I'm going to duplicate this playlist, .01. So now we have a new playlist, and now I can go ahead and consolidate these. So this one here is consolidated.
All over the world. All over the world.
Right, but I can go back to my original one, and let's get rid of these changes that we just made. Wait, what? Oh yeah. Put that back to -3.
All over the world. All over the world. All over the world.
Yeah, there we go. Now it's back to what she was singing originally. And we could even like go through. We can't really undo back to the point where we might want to, but we can take this and drag that like that.
All over the world.
We could drag this one over like this. And then we could just make sure, yeah.
All over the world. All over the.
And if we want to hear what we changed it to,
All over the world.
you can see it for some reason added a bunch of these little things here. Get out of here, things. Hey, hey, nobody needs you. Hey, hey. Come on. There we go. Gonna get rid of these. Just,
All over the world.
yeah, that one too.
All over the world.
There, like it is right there.
All over the world.
Change it to this one here.
All over the world. All over the world.
Right, so you can change that around. Now, like I said, I would actually do changes like this in Melodyne. It just sounds a little bit more natural. But really, this kind of shows you that you can use these tools for different things. And so it doesn't have to sound natural. It could sound kind of weird, right? All right, so we are going to take a break. We're not quite done yet, though. There's still some things I want to show you to do with your homework or your assignment for today. Let me just go ahead and pause this recording.